Okay. Good morning, everyone. Let's begin with the prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity you provide for us this morning to come together, to open your words, to learn more about who you are and your plan for sending your Son into the world through Isaiah the prophet. Help us to be reminded that these things were written 700 years before all that Jesus did and accomplished occurred, that you have proven yourself to be trustworthy, that you have proven yourself to be in control, and that we need to trust in you, we need to hope in your promises, that we need to fear your wrath and your ability to bless us, that we would seek for these things and hope in these things and live our lives based on who you are and what you want for us. We thank you for the opportunity for us to assemble this morning and to encourage one another and to remember your Son especially. Help us to do all things this morning in a way that's pleasing to you and edifying to one another. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we are in Isaiah 41. We just finished chapter 40. This is really like kind of this changeover, and I'm not sure it's the real break in Isaiah, but it certainly shows, a focus on the future and what's going to happen in terms of the Messianic age. So this is an incredibly important chapter. God is promising at the beginning of chapter 40 that your suffering is going to come to an end. Your punishment I brought upon you, not because you deserve it, but because I've chosen to bring it to an end. And I'm going to bring future blessings. There's two future blessings you could discuss. There's the blessings that are more immediate of the suffering and oppression you've been under is going to be dealt with. And I believe that he's talking about ultimately they're going to end up being destroyed as a nation, they're going to be sent into captivity, and then God is going to bring them back from captivity. And that would be like the return under Cyrus. That's the first part of this. But God's also going to talk about the greater victory, which is through the Messiah. So both these things, I believe, are being described. I have these first two slides. I just wanted to remind you that throughout chapters 40 through 66, there's many messianic prophecies. These are ones that are simply quoted in the New Testament. These aren't all of them. They're just the ones that are quoted in the New Testament. I see I'm competing with a little baby again. All right. Okay, I'm not even going to try. So Isaiah 40 through 60, I just want to mention a couple. In Isaiah 40, that's the message of John the Baptist preparing the way for the Messiah. In 42, we're going to get to this hopefully this morning. God's going to send his servant. God's going to put his spirit upon him, and he's going to bring forth justice and other things. Let me see. 45:23, that salvation will come and that every knee will bow to God. And we know that's through Jesus. And that the servant is going to be a light to the nations. He's going to lead them to the springs of water. There's going to be a great message. I don't know about feet. I think that's supposed to be feet. But anyway, the feet of those who bring good news and peace and salvation. So there's a message going forth. And then, of course, we have Isaiah 52 into 53, the suffering servant. And then a promise that they will all be taught of God. And Jesus says, "Come to me," and that's the message of Isaiah. This is clearly pointing to the Messiah. The second half, just a couple more, that God is promising that his house would be a house of prayer for all peoples. Jesus quotes this, especially in Luke, describing that's what God's house was intended to be, and if that's what God wants it to be, it will end up being that way. All right, not a physical house, but a spiritual house. And that there's going to be, God's going to create praise and peace to them who are far and them who are near. A Redeemer will come to Zion. Isaiah 61, most people know when Jesus went to his hometown in Nazareth. He says, "The Spirit is upon me." And basically he describes his purpose in his work, which is simply what Isaiah 61 predicted. And then let's see, chapter 65, my servants will be blessed. They will eat, but you will be hungry. They will drink, but you will be thirsty. It goes back and forth describing there will be two groups of people. Those who are faithful and trust in me and obey me, and then the rest that remain rebellious or are rebellious. So I just wanted to kind of put that up front. The next one I think is what we talked about last week, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Just briefly mentioning that there's patterns all throughout Isaiah. By the way, do these look like cows to you? I think they look like cows. They're cows staring at everybody. Now you're not going to be able to unsee it. To me, I can't help it. It looks like cows. Anyway, so I will raise up Cyrus, and here it doesn't really actually say Cyrus in chapter 41, but it says a king of the north. Somebody's going to come, and he's going to bring judgment. And so when we look through Isaiah 40 and following, we see signs that it's going back to that theme of bringing this Cyrus to deal with nations and to deal with the ones that are oppressing Israel, which ends up being Babylon. And Medo-Persian Empire, led by Cyrus, is going to oppress the Medo-Persian Empire will defeat the Babylonian Empire, which is oppressing Israel and surrounding nations. All right, so that's kind of just a start. And then what I want to do is later, in the next couple of weeks, I'm just going to maybe put this one. I'm going to get to that one. I hope I get this one today. There's a bunch of themes throughout Isaiah. I've got a few. I'm still working on some to get them onto here. But this one is, we talk about it several times, turning a wilderness into a garden, into a watered garden. And is that literal or is it figurative? And a lot of people say, oh, it has to be literal. But when we look at all the wording, we come to understand, no, it's not meant to be literal. It's figurative for what God's going to do through the gospel. And we understand that the living waters are spiritual waters. It's not meant to be physical water. So even the New Testament helps us to see, don't try to take it literally. Okay, so I'm going to put that off the board for now. And we're going to get to Isaiah 40 and 41. So we already did 40. And the message, I believe, in Isaiah 40, just to really sum it up, is God's promising that ultimate future with Jesus. Okay, ultimate blessings. And then the rest of the chapter, basically God is saying, you can trust what I'm saying because I am God. Here's who I am. So you can know that what I've just told you can be trusted. That's kind of like the basic message of chapter 40. Now, I'm going to suggest the next chapters are doing pretty much the same thing. But now God's going to talk about the short-term bringing of we'll say Cyrus. And I will deal with this nation, trust me, and then he goes back and forth and again reminds them, because this is who I am. All right? Now, everybody should be afraid of Cyrus, but God then says, but you, Israel, you shouldn't fear Cyrus, because you should understand what? What should everybody understand that's a Jew? Why shouldn't they fear Babylon or Medo-Persia? God's in control. And if they will put their trust in God and humbly obey Him, there's nothing to worry about. There's no reason to fear. That's really, I think, the ultimate message that's here is you've got to understand that God is trying to teach them. You need to trust in me. And if you trust in me, you will respect and obey my will. You will not be rebellious. All right, so chapter 41. In the first 4 verses, he talks about what's coming, which is, again, this king. I'm just going to say Cyrus. Coastlands, listen to me in silence. Let the peoples gain new strength. Let them come forward, then let them speak. Let us come together for judgment. Who has aroused one from the east? And that's far. That would be like Persia, which is Cyrus, whom he calls in righteousness to his feet. He delivers up nations before him and subdues kings. He makes them like dust with his sword, as the wind-driven chaff with his bow. He pursues them, passing on in safety, by a way who had not been traversing with his feet. Who has performed and accomplished it, calling forth the generations from the beginning? I, Jehovah, am the first, and with the last, I am He. So again, who's going to bring about this king from the east? God will do it. That's the first part. I am God. I say this is going to happen. I will do this. You should trust it. But then in verse 5, the coastlands, which represent basically the other nations, how are they going to view a power like this Cyrus? How are they going to view him? Fear, yeah. Here comes somebody so powerful, we need to be afraid of him. So that's the next part. Verses 5 to 7. The coastlands have seen and are afraid. The ends of the earth tremble. They have drawn near and have come. Each one helps his neighbor. He says to his brother, be strong. So the craftsman encourages a smelter, and he who smooths metal with a hammer encourages him who beats the anvil, saying of the soldering, it is good, and he fastens it with nails, that it should not totter. So what are they doing? When they see this enemy coming, what are they doing? What are they turning to? Idols, they're gods. And maybe we shouldn't just think about like an actual literal idol. What might we turn to today when we start getting afraid of some enemy? What might we turn to?
Our government.
Our government with what?
Guns.
What are they? They have guns. They've got all sorts of amazing tech, right? We turn to them. Who else could we turn to when we see a big problem in life? Excuse me?
We turn to the enemy.
Right, yeah, like we submit to them. Yeah, exactly. That's a huge one where we just now we have to compromise, and that's a lot of what Revelation talks about. People start compromising with the enemy. And what's the other thing that if it's not the government, then what else is going to maybe give us our confidence? Ourselves and our money and our stuff and whatever, right? We're gonna turn to other things. What are we supposed to be doing? Turning to God, right? Recognizing who God is. So, verse 8, the nations, all these people, when they see this, they're going to be afraid, and they're going to turn to all the other things, like their gods. But you, Israel, verse 8, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen. By the way, Israel is called my servant. Are they really God's servant? What makes somebody a servant of God? It's a really hard question. They serve. Are they serving God? No, they're kind of my servant in name only. And that's going to be another theme that's all throughout Isaiah, my servant. Well, Israel is supposed to be God's servant, but they're not really serving. So who will come and be God's servant? It's kind of a trick question. It's not really a trick question. Who will come and be God's servant and truly serve God? Who's going to do that? Jesus. And the body of Christ. So my servant will not only be Jesus, but all those who are faithful and follow him will be his servant. So that's going to be, in the next chapters, my servant's going to be used of physical Israel, who's supposed to be my servant, but isn't. Then there will be the true servant who will do the will of God, which is Jesus, the Messiah. And then there will be those who learn from him and follow him, and then will be a people that serve God. So all of those are kind of in play in these chapters. But right now he says in verse 8, you Israel, my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, descendant of Abraham, my friend. That's trying to say, look, I'm with you. Abraham, your forefather, was my friend. There's a good relationship here. What should you do? Trust me, serve me. You whom I have taken from the ends of the earth and called from its remotest parts, and said to you, you are my servant. What did God do? He brought them in and said, you are my servant. By the way, that's a privilege, but it's also an expectation. Are they just going to get all the blessings of God? Or are they supposed to serve God? See, they're people that are supposed to be serving God. Are they doing that? No, so that's going to create a lot of tension. I have chosen you and not rejected you. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you For I am your God, I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So, again, what is God trying to tell Israel? You can what? You can trust in me. By the way, should they already know that? Have they already had a history where God was trustworthy? Absolutely. So when God says it again, why does he do that? Why does God do it again? Doesn't he just say it once? So why does he keep on repeating himself?
Peter said he always had the intent to remind us of things.
Okay, that's good. We need reminders. Okay, and God understands that. What is that an act of, by the way? Is that mercy? Mercy of God? Yep. And also he's trying to teach. And he's trying to build. For those who are listening, he's trying to create an understanding and to give people the confidence they need. All right? Even though they should know better. All right, so as we continue now in verse 11, behold, all those who are angered at you will be shamed and dishonored. Those who contend with you will be as nothing and will perish. But wait a minute. You know, this is going to be, Babylon is great, and Medo-Persia, it's an empire, and they're going to stomp all over us. What did he just say in the chapter before about nations? What are nations really to God? Nothing, like a drop in the bucket. Less than nothing, he says in chapter 40. So, but what are people going to do when they see these huge problems in front of them? They're going to fail to trust God, and they're going to want to do it what? Their own way, which is the wrong way. Almost always it's the wrong way. So, God is saying, I'm with you. I'm Abraham's friend. You're my chosen people. If you will trust in me, you don't have to be afraid of them. I'll be with you. Trust me. Will they trust God? Will they trust God? As a people, no. Well, and maybe some individual, yes. There's always a small people, remnant. But in general, they're not going to trust God. By the way, is it relevant for us? Are there a lot of things going on in our lives where we're tested to trust God? And what do we end up saying? God won't help me. God can't help me. I've got to what? I've got to do it my way. I've got to trust in other things. I'm going to trust in my money. I'm going to trust in government. I'm going to trust whatever's out there. God is. This is for us. Are we going to trust men and ourselves and stuff, or are we going to trust the Creator? That's always the challenge. Verse 13. For I am the Lord your God, who upholds your right hand, who says to you, do not fear, I will help you. I will help you, declares the Lord. Oh, I'm sorry. Do not fear, you worm Jacob. I got to leave that. That's kind of a... Do not fear, you worm Jacob, you men of Israel. I will help you, declares the Lord, and your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Maybe God is speaking harshly because what does he know they're going to do after he gives them this pep talk? Not trust. Verse 15. Behold, I have made you a new sharp threshing sledge with double edges. You will thresh the mountains and pulverize them. You will make the hills like chaff. You will winnow them, and the wind will carry them away, and the storm will scatter them. But you will rejoice in the Lord. You will glory in the Holy One of Israel. If you only trust in me, you will be victorious, and you will have joy. Just trust in me. That's God's plea to them. All right. So in verses 17 to 20, I think he jumps ahead to the bigger victory. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple things that jumped out at me.
Sure.
One, in verse 12, these nations that are subduing other nations and that are a threat to them, you won't even be able to find them anymore.
Yeah.
Like they're
so temporary.
They're just not going to exist.
Yeah.
And so even if you were to try and get your revenge or whatever, they're just not even there.
Yeah.
And then this idea of a threshing sledge, like the harvest doesn't put up resistance, right? The harvest doesn't fight back against you. So this idea that they're gonna just harvest these nations or harvest their enemies, mountains even. It's like, well, if you just put your threshing sledge through a mountain, and it just bends over to you. It doesn't resist you at all.
And the reason is if you will trust in me.
Right.
If I will be with you and this will be the result. You'll be victorious.
Yeah.
And threshing is when you try to break up the wheat from the chaff. You have to take the seed, the pumpkin seed or the whatever, and you want to break the outside part from the inside part, and that's the threshing. So you can bring the harvest, which is what you're pointing. So again, God is offering this. He's telling them what it can be like, but he knows they're not going to listen. So then in verse, like I said, in the next section, 17 to 20, the afflicted and needy are seeking water, but there is none. That's where we're coming back to this, and maybe I'll just put it there in a minute. The afflicted and needy are seeking water, but there is none. And their tongue is parched with thirst. By the way, is this really, like you got enemies and they're oppressing you, and what are you thinking? Oh, I'm so thirsty. Is this really like a literal response to an enemy attacking? Probably not. So what is this? This is imagery. This is a figure that's going to be used over and over again to say, I will provide. I will satisfy. Verse 17, the afflicted and needy are seeking water, but there is none. Their tongue is parched with thirst. I, the Lord, will answer them myself as the God of Israel. I will not forsake them. I will open rivers on bare heights and springs in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land fountains of water. I will put the cedar in the wilderness, the acacia and the myrtle and the olive tree. I will place the juniper in the desert. Again, what do you have? You have a desert. What kind of life does it have? Very little. And then you bring in water. What do you start getting? All sorts of life. And not only just like little scraggly plants, but what? Trees. The acacia, the myrtle, the olive tree. I will place the juniper in the desert, together with the box tree and the cypress, that they may see and recognize and consider and gain insight as well, that the hand of Jehovah has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. There's two things I want to point out, is this figure all throughout Isaiah, and really into a little bit of the other prophets, not as much, of desert, and I'm going to turn into this fertile, beautiful land. That's the first imagery. But then notice, again, is this about what Cyrus is going to do? Or is this pointing to Jesus and the gospel? This is pointing to the gospel, the spiritual blessings that come. And I'm going to prove that later, but we're going to see in the list. The second thing before I get to the list is notice at the end, the hand of God has done this and the Holy One of Israel has created it. I think there's a really interesting pattern. There's two ways that word created is a very unique word in the Bible. It's bara. I don't know how to pronounce it. I just look at it. But that word in Hebrew is back in Genesis 1. God created. Okay? And it talks about how he created this, he created that. And then later it talks about he created man. And it will refer back to Genesis saying he created. But there's something else that God is going to create. I believe it's the new heavens and the new earth. I believe it's spiritual life through Jesus. There's a new creation that's coming. So there's a creation, the old creation, and then there's a new creation. I'm going to show you that pattern later. But now I want to look at the figure of the water into dry land. I mean the dry land into a garden and water. So you have in chapter 35, there's a wilderness and it will blossom. There will be joy, there will be waters, the deaf will hear, the lame will leap, the grass becomes reeds. And then also there's another imagery which we'll get to later, a highway of holiness. You think there's a literal highway that's going to be made in the desert? Maybe, but or it could be what? A way to bring people where? To God and to the blessings that God can offer. So that'll be later. But chapter 41, which we're reading now, the afflicted are seeking water. God will open rivers. He will make a wilderness a pool. There will be cedars. And then also it talks about, I created this. But that's a different topic. So in chapter 43, I'm going to do something new. There will be rivers in the desert, open rivers, make wilderness and pool and cedars. Chapter 43, 19 to 21. Chapter 44, 3 to 5. This is the one I mentioned 2 months ago. Probably Isaiah 44. Look at the wording here. Verse 3. And we'll say verses 3 to 5. Chapter 44, 3 to 5. This, I believe, proves it can't be physical. It's not meant to be physical desert into a physical garden. Verse 3, for I will pour out water on a thirsty land, and streams on the dry ground. I will pour out my spirit on your offspring, and my blessing on your descendants. And they will spring up among the grass, like poplars by streams of water. Does it talk about literal trees popping up? Is that what is it talking about?
Pouring out spirit.
Excuse me?
Pouring out spirit.
Yeah, it's certainly spirit, but so what are these poplars that start springing up? Christians, faithful people, people that are responding to the message of God and being blessed. Verse 5, this one will say, I am the Lord's, and another will write on his hand, belonging to the Lord, and will name Israel's name with honor. So this passage, I think there's a lot of them that do it, but this one, definitely 44, 3 to 5, is showing us that this is not literal wilderness into a literal garden, a well-watered garden. It's describing what God's planning to do spiritually through the Messiah. What he's going to create is a incredible, beautiful, healthy, nourished spiritual garden. Yes, right.
Say if somebody new heaven and a new heaven that God's going to be creating.
Right.
Creating a new heaven.
Yes.
So we have to remember that Satan was in heaven one time. You don't think that's corrupted because of him being there?
No, not at all. No, I'm not sure I can answer questions like that about what's going on with Satan and how is Satan there with God. And those are really difficult things. But God is assuring us that this place that he's creating, there is no corruption in it. And the eternal place, there's no. And by the way, where is Satan reserved for? That lake of fire. That's where he is. He has no effect on the rest of it. God's using his rebellion for his purposes, but he doesn't have any effect on God's holiness or God. So I don't know. I can't really say how many passages it would say, well, this is what it talks about. It doesn't really, so I want to move on from that. But so 45, let the clouds pour down righteousness. Does that sound literal? It sounds like it's using the imagery, doesn't it? The imagery of water. So let the clouds pour down righteousness and salvation bear fruit. I created again. So God's going to create this spiritual plenty. Okay? In chapter 49, he will guide them to the springs of water. And Revelation 7 at the end, he says, who's the one guiding them? And they're not just springs of water, but they're springs of water of life. Who's doing the guiding? Jesus, the Lamb, is going to guide them. Chapter 51, her wilderness he will make like Eden. And then 55, one of my favorite passages, he talks about how God is forgiving, and he's so forgiving, his ways are not like our ways. As high as the heavens are above the earth are his ways above our ways. And then he says, as the rain and snow come down and nourish and bring forth plants that feed the people and everything, what else is going to be poured down from heaven? It's like the rain and the snow. My words are going to come forth, and what's there going to be? There's going to be, instead of thorns, there will be beautiful cypress trees. So what's going to happen spiritually? His words are going to bring life. His words are going to bring blessings. This is the gospel. This is what Jesus accomplished. All right, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I want to at least mention it because we're going to see little hints of it throughout. Yes?
Just the idea of water in the desert and then being parched, going back to chapter 41. If you're in the desert and you don't have water with you, you can't get it. It's not there. Yeah. And so there's only water if God provides it.
God provides it.
It's full dependent.
But wait a minute, hasn't God already proven that he's able to do something like that?
Yeah.
Water out of wilderness? Weren't they in the wilderness once when they had no water? And what did God do? He provided water for them. Plenty of water, right? So what should that teach them? And maybe that was an object lesson, and now he's using that imagery from that to do what? I can do it again. I'm going to do it in an even more amazing way. Just trust me. Trust me.
Last time you just had a drink. This time I'm going to make it a full oasis there.
Yeah, and it's going to satisfy you permanently. Like Jesus said in Leviticus, I don't know why I said that. John 4. When I have no idea. I'm trying to think of where that connection came from. I have no idea. In John 4, what did Jesus say to the woman at the well?
Living water.
Yeah, living water, but what did he say about it? You'll never thirst. You'll be done. It'll completely satisfy. Ooh, I want some of that. Right? We don't have to come and draw water every day. That'd be great. Well, again, it's pointing to something far greater. Was Jesus talking about actual water? No. So is it possible that we could go through Isaiah and understand? And again, it's not so much with this. I think most people would understand this, but even then there's still people talking about today Israel is doing a lot of agriculture and guess what? The desert land is becoming what? It's becoming a garden. It's a fulfillment of no, that's not really the point. But maybe people want to. But all throughout Isaiah, there's all other imagery. And what are people doing with that imagery? Unfortunately, trying to take it absolutely literal and looking for some hint that that's being fulfilled literally today. And I think it's just, and that the very fact that they're looking for fulfillment today is a serious problem. But the fact that they're trying to take it literally, Isaiah is not meant to be taken literally in that. There's a lot of figurative language throughout Isaiah. You need to be careful. All right. So back to Isaiah 41. And let's see where we left off. I don't remember. I think it was 20. So 21 and we'll go to 21 to 24, I guess. Present your case, the Lord says. Bring forward your strong arguments, the King of Jacob says. Let them bring forth and declare to us what is going to take place. As for the former events, declare what they were, that we may consider them and know their outcome. Or announce to us what is coming. Declare the things that are going to come afterward, that we may know that you are gods. Indeed, do good or evil, that we may anxiously look about us and fear together. Behold, you are of no account, and your work amounts to nothing. He who chooses you is an abomination. Again, he's comparing himself to, and again, not necessarily physical gods. I think that that's true. But who speaks for the physical gods? What are the only choices for the ones that the physical, the man's gods? Who speaks for them? Man. What's the other choice?
They have to speak for themselves.
Excuse me?
They'd have to speak for themselves.
Okay, they have to speak for themselves, which they can't. We know that. But who might have an influence in those gods? Is it possible that Satan could have an influence? Don't we see like in 1 Corinthians 10 where they worship to who? Okay. 1 Corinthians 10. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that there's certainly language here that would suggest that. 1 Corinthians 10, verses 20 and 21. No, but I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I do not want you to be sharers in demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. If you're not listening to God, who can influence you? Satan can influence you. So however that works, but what we know is these gods are nothing. That's what he says. They're nothing. And anything that they do, they can't do anything. They can't do good. They can't do evil. They can do nothing. And so what is he saying? Okay, one of the things that will prove this is go ahead, do what?
Good or evil.
Okay, do good or evil, but before that, what's more obvious? Verse 22. Go ahead and do what?
Prophesy.
Prophesy. Predict the future. Who can do that? In the way that God does it. No one. Only God. Now, can somebody make an educated guess? Yeah. And I believe if Satan's been around for thousands of years and he's seen a lot of things and he's pretty bright, could he make some pretty educated guesses? What can he not do?
Make them happen.
Excuse me?
Make them happen.
He can't make them happen. And even talks about God says, I make their predictions fail. But also, he can't know the future. He can only maybe, like us, try to guess a little bit and maybe do a better job. And it might seem like, people might think, ooh, he really knows what's going on. But what is God saying? Go ahead, prove yourselves. What are they going to do? Nothing. That should be obvious. But what are people still going to do? they're going to still trust in these things rather than God, which is man's failure. All right, so in verses 25 and 26, he goes back to the point of this king of the north of the east, which is Cyrus. I have aroused one from the north, and he has come. From the rising of the sun he will call on my name, and he will come upon rulers as upon mortar, even as the potter treads the clay. Who has declared this from the beginning that we might know, or from former times that we may say he is right? Surely there was no one who declared. Surely there was no one who proclaimed. Surely there was no one who heard your words. In other words, the only one that declared what Cyrus is going to do in the future is God. It's the only one. Should that teach the Jews something? And then also anybody else that learns from the scriptures? Absolutely. God alone is the one that should be trusted and has power. Verses 27 to 29 is a rebuke. Formerly I said to Zion, behold, here they are, and to Jerusalem, I will give a messenger of good news. What he's saying, this almost sounds like he's pointing to the Messiah, but it's not. Who was supposed to be the messenger of good news? It's the people of Israel, the servant of God. This is pointing to Israel. Are they being a messenger of good news? Are they teaching people about God and being a holy nation pointing to God? No. It says, to Jerusalem I will give a messenger of good news, but when I look, there is no one. There is no counselor among them, who if I ask can give an answer. Behold, all of them are false. Behold, their works are worthless. Their molten images are wind and emptiness. So God is offering Zion to be this messenger of good news. Are they doing a good job? They're not doing a good job. Well, look at it later. Chapter 42:19. I've got a few passages here. 42:19. Let's see if I can find it on my other sheet here. That's not it. All right, we'll have to. All right, so 42:19. Who is blind but my servant, or as deaf as my messenger whom I send? Who is so blind as he that is at peace with me, or so blind as the servant of the Lord? And so again, who's he talking about? This blind servant. Certainly not Jesus.
Israel.
It's Israel. Okay? You have seen, verse 20, you have seen many things, but you do not observe them. Your ears are open, but none hears. The Lord was pleased for his righteousness' sake to make the law great and glorious, but this is a people plundered and despoiled. All of them are trapped in caves or are hidden away in prisons. They have become a prey with none to deliver them, and a spoil with none to say, give them back. So he's talking about Israel. They're supposed to be God's messenger, and they're not doing their job. And so he's rebuking them because they're not trusting in him. They're fearing others. They're compromising with other nations, right? Because they're afraid. What were the people in this time doing? They were wanting to trust in Egypt. Egypt's army will come and help us. And who's saying no? We need to trust in God. It was Isaiah, but also what king was at this time? Just to remind everybody. What was the king at the time of Isaiah? Hezekiah. King Hezekiah was a righteous king, and he was saying, we're going to trust in God. And then even Assyria is saying, what are you going to trust in Egypt? They're not going to be able to help you. They're a broken reed. Are you going to trust in your God? All the other gods couldn't do anything. Your God, you think your God's going to be any different? Remember, this is what we talked about earlier. So the people should have trusted in God, but they're not. And so they're supposed to be the messenger of God's character and his power and his love and mercy if you would come to him, and they're not doing their job. So we're just going to begin chapter 42. So if man doesn't do the job, what has to happen? If man's not doing the job, if God's servant is not doing the job, what does God have to do? If you want the job done right, do it yourself. So who's going to come and do the job the right way? God's true servant. Who's the true servant? Jesus. So we're going to read the beginning of chapter 42. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He He will not cry out or raise his voice, nor make his voice heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a dimly burning wick he will not extinguish. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not be disheartened or crushed until he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands will wait expectantly for his law. And so he's going to continue some details, but that's the beginning part. You're not doing the job, so my servant will do the job. And in whom my soul delights, I have put my spirit upon him. Does that language sound familiar? Would it maybe remind you of a certain event? What event might this remind you of, hopefully? At Jesus' baptism, what does God have to say? This is my beloved Son, whom I'm well pleased. And then what happens to Jesus as that's happening? Oh, the Holy Spirit comes upon him and remains upon him, right? So it says, my chosen one. And by the way, at least in Luke, there's a passage that talks about Jesus being God's chosen one. My chosen one in whom my soul delights, I have put my spirit upon him. Okay? He will bring forth justice to the nations. Is that an if? Is he going to try to do this? He will bring forth justice to the nations. By the way, that's kind of a big plan, isn't it? Justice to the nations? How much injustice is there? Kind of depressingly, way too much. You can't even consider it all. But he's going to bring justice to the nations. They didn't necessarily understand what God meant, but he's going to bring justice to the nations. He will not cry out or raise his voice, nor make his voice heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a dimly burning wick he will not extinguish. Does that mean that Jesus never in his life saw a candle and decided to put it out? Or that there was a reed and he never accidentally stepped on a brushed reed? Maybe. But what does it really mean? What are you going to see in this man? Is he going to be a typical powerful leader?
Most men pounce upon weakness.
Yeah, most men, they take advantage of that and they lead by dominating, right? And what is... Somebody had a hand up over here, so I want to get to that. Yeah, Elder.
When he deals with us, you're smoldering, he's going to help you get a flame again. You're bruised, he's going to help you heal.
Yeah, this is mercy, patience, love, gentleness, right? Is that the character of Jesus? Yeah, he just went about quietly doing good. Went about quietly doing the will of God. He wasn't dominating and controlling. I mean, he dominated when he talked about Scripture, and there was ways in which he did dominate, but it wasn't in a forceful human kind of way. And so, what else do we see? The end of verse 3, he will faithfully bring forth justice. So second time he says, he will bring forth justice. He will not be disheartened or crushed until he has established justice in the earth. So third time he says he will establish what? Justice. But then that phrase before, he will not be disheartened or crushed until. What does that suggest about his life as he brings forth justice? Is there going to be an easy life? No. What's going to happen to him? He's going to be rejected, persecuted. He's going to, at least on some level, feel disheartened. And then they're going to crush him. But what's still going to happen? He's still going to bring forth justice. And we can see the life of Jesus and his rejection and crucifixion in that. And then he will establish justice on the earth, and the coastlands will wait expectantly for his law. So there's going to be a law giver. He's going to bring forth a law like Moses. What did Moses say? In Deuteronomy 18, God will raise up what? A prophet like me, and you must listen to all that he says. He's going to speak everything God tells him to speak. So what we see in this is, again, this pointing to, I am in control, trust me, and the future is bright. The future is good, but you've got to trust in me. And that means to be faithful and obedient to me. That's really where I say God is speaking. It's Isaiah, but God through Isaiah is trying to tell the people, is this truth? Can we trust it? Absolutely. Trust God. That's the point. God's proven himself in the past. He will do all that he said. No excuses. All right. Thank you for your attention. We'll continue in chapter 42 next week.